As a filmmaker, what is your primary goal?
Oof. I want to take the audience in a grip immediately and never let it go.
It's not a bunch of mechanical drawings. Otherwise, anybody could do it. It's the way one drawing dovetails into another, how far it is apart and how you time it. That's the skill.
I tremendously admire the animation of especially one man, Milt Kahl. He was my friend and he was the man.
Excuse me, Milt, do you ever listen to classical music when you're working?
Oh, Christ's sake! What a stupid question! I'm not smart enough to think of more than one thing at a time.
I'm Dick Williams. I'm originally from Canada. I came to England in 1955 to make one animated film, and I ended up with my own elaborate business, Richard Williams Animation Productions. Smack in the middle of London, there's the tiny district called Soho. The reason I work here is that Soho is also the center of London's film business.
Richard Williams, good morning. Can you hold on a minute?
I always used to work alone. I paid my own way by animating television commercials.
I say, could you clean and press him?
Yes, of course. Oh, my, you are in a mess.
Come to the cleaners who care. Johnson's.
I'm always at the recording session, clutching the storyboard, making sure that the sound exactly fits the action that we're going to have to draw later on. I want to make animation grow up. Animation ought to be able to carry serious concepts. It should be able to move slowly and with dignity. And it can be beautiful. You view of a small room with the walls painted solid black to kill any reflections on the acetate sheets, and you have the camera mounted directly overhead, staring down with a glass eye. You start with the background. Then the acetate cells go on top of this. Then the cameraman pushes the button and the camera shoots one frame, 1/24th of a second. And then he does the whole thing over again with the next stage of the movement. For 3 days, working from 9 till 5, he performs this ritual.
Behind me is the headquarters of Richard Williams Animation, where they turn out some really marvellous cartoon films.
Why is it called the Pink Panther?
The stone is flawed. The figure of a springing panther can be seen clearly.
Richard Williams sees himself as continuing the tradition of the great Hollywood animators. In 1972, the film industry recognized that Richard Williams had finally arrived. He was awarded an Oscar for his television feature, A Christmas Carol.
Into my life came Chuck Jones again. And he said, I want you to animate Dickens' Christmas Carol. 1850s illustrations, like the Light Brigade. We slept under our desks and everything for this thing. We were able to get in for the Oscars. Chuck put it in, and we won the Oscar. And even better than that, I got a letter from Milt Kahl saying how impressed he was with it.
Madame Medusa's pawn shop boutique.
That's a naughty word. We never rob. We just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it.
I had heard Ken Harris say there's this guy at Disney's who's supposed to be tremendous, called Milt Kahl. Milt told me that he always had to animate 2 minutes of most of the main Disney characters for Walt to approve it.
The lines and proportions on Milt Kahl's characters was a standard for other Disney animators.
I don't draw unless I have to.
So I actually don't really enjoy it. I don't mind it.
So what happened was on the Jungle Book, for the first time, he was able to do whole sequences by himself.
Shere Khan, I'd like a word with you, if you don't mind.
Shere Khan. What a surprise.
Forgive me if I've interrupted anything.
Oh, no, nothing at all.
It's the tiger comes out, and it is both a tiger weighing 800 pounds or something, and it's also a caricature of George Saunders, who did the voice.
I wanted you to see what you'd missed by snubbing me. Distinguished clientele, food and wine for gourmets, devastating music.
Well, if you do just happen to see the man cub, you will inform me first. Understand?
But, you know, my kicks, I got my kicks at the studio from putting a performance on the screen.
Now, where do you suppose he could be?
And it's also a self-portrait of Milt.
Trust in me.
I can't be bothered with that.
I went back to my studio in a state of shock.
Now for my rendezvous with the man cub.
My drawings were always quite clean anyway. You know, I didn't have an awful lot of extraneous lines, you know. So they'd look something like that.
Where is she? What is your alibi this time, Nitwit?
Let me look at it.
And the damn prince, you know. This is gee, what a. Now, I got stuck with a prince on Sleeping Beauty, you know, and what a.
You hear that, Samson?
Yeah.
Or an extra bucket of oats?
Onerous task, you know. It's a terrible thing, you know, to have to do that.
Don't be ridiculous!
And he was, and is, the world's greatest animator.
Everybody says it anyhow, that Milt Kahl is the best animator there ever was.
Well, that's nice. I'd like to hear that.
Is the best Milt Kahl.
Mm-hmm. I think that...
the best man at Disney is a fellow called Milt Kahl.
I think you'll get...
Especially one man, Milton Kahl.
Yeah, you'd get quite a bit of...
When you look at the model sheets, like 90% are Milt Kahl's drawings, because Walt Disney knew that he was the top draftsman.
Dissension about that. All these guys, they're like actors, you know. They all have their ego, and I think they all think they're the best. And I'm no exception.
But he was very impressed that I'd spotted his work, you see, because this is the first time he's done all this stuff on his own. He came to my studio. He says, I haven't met him, right? So I didn't know what to do. I ran up to him. I started shining his shoes. As he comes in, you see. He says, Joe, you don't have to keep doing that. And I said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And he said, well, you can stop shining because you draw better than me. And I said, oh, no. And he says, then he says, well, on the other hand, keep shining because you can't animate worth shit. So boy, did I get to work.
Thankfully, the hero of the hour is Richard Williams, who's based in London. Williams and Zemeckis laboured together to achieve the seamless effect.
For animator Richard Williams, it was a calculated career decision to do it.
They've been trying to do this movie for about 10 years. And then Bob Zemeckis, the director, who really had the conception to do it like this, decided that I'd be the guy to do it.
What it turned into was one of the largest motion picture productions ever. It took the combined effort of over 700 of the industry's most talented people to bring the film to the screen. It all began with the seemingly simple idea of making a film in which cartoon characters and humans live side by side.
Gee, Pathetti, I was thrilled. You saved my life. Hold still, will ya? Does this help?
Disney technique, the beautiful Disney animation, the great Warner Brothers characterization, and Tex Avery humor.
Just drop the refrigerator in my head one more time! Roger, I got it on your head 23 times already.
We would get photo blow-ups, great big photographs of each frame of the live action, and then we'd take a piece of paper and put it on top and draw where the rabbit ought to be. And then we'd do the mats, making the damn thing look round. And then we'd shoot all those things individually and send them off to Industrial Light and Magic in San Francisco, and they'd put it together. And we were always surprised how much better it looked than we expected.
Going up, sir.
There were tens of thousands of hand-drawn cells that required hundreds of gallons of paint.
Your floor, sir. Have a good day, sir.
Jumping without a parachute? Kinda dangerous, ain't it?
Yeah, you could get killed, huh?
I can't say it was fun, because it was terribly hard work for nearly 3 years.
Cut. Print it, next page.
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's successful.
Please welcome Richard Williams.
I'm very proud to say we must have 175 awards. mostly for advertising things. And I thought, if I have to do commercial work, which I'm going to have to do, I'll do my own work in parallel. So that's what I've done. I've just kept learning, studying, and constantly doing the commercial work at the same time. I think I've made over 2,500 commercials.
The pursuit of excellence has sometimes led Richard Williams to spend more on the making of a commercial than he receives as a fee.
No one knows my FACE, but the American Express card can change that. Because far away, or even on my favorite street.
Of course! It's these big Skull Care capsules. Took 2 before I come out.
Spice the frosty crystal with all the fruity flavors.
Tony, help! Tiger Man's stealing the Frosty's secret formula!
That's like the Tic Tac, the 2-flavored mint.
If you want to grow up fast, take one of these.
Not so fast, nicotine. If you want to go up fast, take one of these.
These DVDs are about learning the animation systems and principles to enable you to animate walks or anything else you want to. I'll show you lots of formulas and devices that you can absorb and use. But use your ideas, your style, your expression, and your culture. There isn't one way to do this. What I'm giving you are the tools so that you can make whatever you want.
Jocon's sex appeal aftershave look. Remember.
Alas, poor Yorick never used Super Avalon videotape. The great man in tape cassettes.
But the Daily Gargle with Listerine antiseptic mouthwash deals with the germs. Roger, what are you doing?
I just came to see Jessica and to have a Diet Coke.
I always did my personal work while I was doing commercial work to get the money to do my personal work. And that started this pattern where I'd be doing commercials or Pink Panthers or whatever it is that came along, or Roger Rabbits, to get enough money or prestige or professional clout, prizes, and I'd get enough money for my work to get the time to try and advance animation.
Once upon a time, in Soho, in the heart of London, there lived a young Canadian artist. One day, he had an idea. He would make a 90-minute animated feature film based on the art and folklore of the Middle East. The animator is Richard Williams. The film
So I worked like hell. I had this section of a magician with cards. And it went on for years. I was trying to have this fellow shuffling cards and spreading the cards out.
I have power over people, though they may appear complex. For me, they fall like playing cards, and I control the depths.
And this is a 4-second shot of a bandit laughing.
thank you for the gift, for the screening of The Thief and the Cobbler today. How was the screening? Did the audience reaction meet with your expectations?
It was much more. I mean, it's a tremendous reaction at the end. And then tomorrow night we have my world premiere of my latest short film.
Prologue.
Yes, which I think is probably my best work so far. The prologue is something I'm just completing now. This is an idea for a big film which I had when I was 15 years old. And I thought, I wonder if I'll ever get good enough to do this. And people say, what's this film about? And I say, well, I'll tell you the working title. And I say, it's called Will I Live to Finish This?
I would now like to bring to the stage animator James Baxter.
Dick Williams was my first animation idol, my first mentor. He was artistically generous, curious. He was a veteran when I first met him, but he was just as excited to learn new things about this craft as I was as a novice. He never lost that passion.
Thank you to Dad for inspiring us all. They say people on their deathbed wish they had worked less, but I'm pretty sure he wished he had worked more.
I'm doing a test sequence of a girl fondling a flower. I'm doing each drawing as though it were a single watercolor sketch, but there are 60 of them. If you speed up a realistic action, like a cartoon or an old newsreel, it becomes funny. But if you slow it down even slightly, it gains dignity. So I'll wrap up.